where there are old triumphs, but also new frontiers, with challenges as great as the state itself, but a belief the best is yet to come, bringing you the faces, the places, and the spirit of the last frontier. This is Frontiers with Rhonda McBride.
Welcome to Frontiers. Whether you catch it or eat it, fishing is something almost every Alaskan can relate to. Yet, the fishing industry and the importance of it to our state's economy is not well understood. In this program, we hope to give you an appreciation of that. And Laine Welch of Kodiak has been doing that for almost 3 decades, raising awareness about Alaska's seafood industry through newspapers and radio. She's known by many as Ms. Fish, and we'll give you a look at her homegrown media empire. And we'll also talk about some of the issues that are hot right now. The epic battle over Kenai Kings between the sports fishing interests and the set netters. The massive Bristol Bay salmon fishery that is ramping up. And Andrew Jensen from the Alaska Journal of Commerce will be joining us in that conversation. Alaska, percentage-wise, probably has more fish junkies per capita than any other state. And chances are, if you're watching this show, fish is something that you're in the know about. And maybe you've heard of Laine Welch on public radio or saw her column. To many of you, she's simply known as Ms. Fish.
This is Fish Radio. I'm Laine Welch. Fisheries get hit hardest from the budget stall.
Alaska Fish Radio, coming to you from Kodiak and the home of Laine Welch. Her first order of business, to get a pulse on the market. The nice thing about a home office, you can work in your pajamas.
Amber, hi, this is Laine Welch in Kodiak, and I'm wondering if there's anyone there who could give me an update on the Copper River salmon prices?
Usually processors are pretty secretive.
Oh, good.
But Laine has a long list of trusted sources.
Laine Welch here. Can you give me any updates on halibut prices?
Prices, what Laine's listeners are interested in the most.
Oh, this is my favorite. Number one, when I call to get prices and somebody's there and answers the phone. And secondly, when they'll tell me everything.
That includes the backstory, what's behind a drop or rise in prices. And how does a glut or shortage of fish in one part of the world affect what fishermen can get for their catch here?
This is one of the few businesses in the world that many times the fishermen go out and they don't know how much they're going to get for their product. It helps them plan, the people who are making their lives, supporting their families in this business, if they know that information.
Mid-morning, Laine takes a break.
Every morning I begin my day with a prayer of thanks because I truly realize how good I have it. I love where I live. I love my home. I can do work that has meaning and value, and every day I'm challenged and excited by it.
It takes a lot of discipline to do what Laine does.
It's very leisurely, but again, everything is paced with that, okay, I've got to make sure that I get this radio program in by 3:30 or it's not going to go up on the satellite. This is Fish Radio. I'm Laine Welch, keeping fish fresh for over a month.
The voice, informative, always upbeat. It sounds like you're really happy to be called Ms. Fish.
I am. It fits perfectly.
Laine writes for 30 radio stations, 20 newspapers. Are you a fishing cheerleader, basically?
I view myself as the state's #1 pom-pom girl. You bet. I think of it as, the bastard child of our state. And so I never tire of saying, #1 private employer, revenue second only to oil. And still people aren't hearing it.
But that doesn't stop Laine from trying to get people to listen.
Many fish make identifiable sounds.
Beyond facts and figures, Fish News from Laine has a fun factor.
This story is about how managers are using fish sounds to track where the fish are and what they're doing.
The most recent sound discovered, fish farts.
Oh, I just like collecting mermaids.
Mermaid art, another one of Laine's passions. A reminder to her that Alaska's oceans and waterways are still full of mystery and wonder. For Laine's listeners, fishing is more than just a way to make a living, but a love of the lifestyle.
I feel like this is the Garden of Eden. We're just so surrounded by sea lions and eagles and you name it.
It's true, most fishermen have a love-hate relationship with sea lions. They are a huge nuisance, yet also a potential canary in the coal mine. Overall, they've been on the decline. Even so, Laine says, Alaska's fisheries are still the envy of the world.
And that's what I see. It's just brimming with this vibrant health. And I just hope it stays that way forever. And I hope that my work, in some small part, makes people realize that we're just so blessed with this abundance around us. It's just magical.
Then there's the fishing families themselves. Laine feels protective of them too. She says the annual blessing of the boats, which occurs in most fishing towns at the start of the season, speaks to their vulnerability.
I can't think of another occupation where people are literally putting their life on the line every time they step foot on that boat. Anytime you're waving goodbye, you know in your heart that it could be the last time you see somebody.
And for all the risks, Laine believes fishermen and the industry just don't get the respect they deserve. Laine wishes Alaskans would look at harbors like this one differently.
Each boat is an individual storefront, and I call it a mall and a marina.
So are you guys getting ready to go salmon fishing then?
Laine has a young assistant, Stephanie Mangini, hired to be her boots on the dock.
Hey guys, so I want to ask you a couple questions for Fish Radio.
Stephanie is married to a fisherman and a mom with 2 kids, starting her career in her 30s, just like Laine.
I'm Laine Welch. I became pregnant shortly after graduation from high school, my high school sweetheart, and we married. And I had my first daughter at 19.
Then came more children, a divorce. So Laine, who grew up in Cape Cod, turned to what she knew, fishing. She wrote for newspapers and worked out of her home office, branching out into radio, where she became known as the darling of draggers. And besides mermaids on the wall, she has this, a Harvard degree. She's pictured here with her proud father.
I have tremendous faith, which I think comes from some of the hard knocks in my life and some of the really crappy decisions I've made. But if I had not made those poor decisions, I would not have such an appreciation for what I have now.
As for the future, Laine is building a bridge to pass on decades of fisheries knowledge to someone who is just as hooked on radio as she is.
I told that person that information, and it was interesting enough for them to tune into me for 2.5 minutes to hear it.
Again and again.
Again and again.
Isn't it like a big puppy pile? Oh, gosh. I think when I pass on, it'll be an image like this that I carry with me with a smile on my face.
Laine Welch has been covering Alaska's seafood industry since 1988. And joining us now in person, Ms. Fish, darling of the draggers, huh?
I don't think that will go over so well in Alaska, but that was 1984 in New England, so it was a different time and place.
No, it was interesting that you're bringing on Stephanie Mangini. She's from Kodiak, right?
Oh, yes. She's a 3rd-generation fishing family member.
So that gives her some authenticity there.
Right. Well, she has the interest that doesn't wane, and that's what's most important. I mean, anyone can do this day after, can do a production, but it's sustaining it day after week after month after year.
That passion. Well, one of the problems in Alaska with beats like fisheries or oil is that it takes a lot of accumulated knowledge. It's a real specialty. And in Alaska, when we lose somebody, potentially someone like you, for example, if you retired, we'd have a big hole in coverage of this issue.
Well, it's encouraging there are some young and upcoming people, such as Andrew Jensen will be mentioning DJ Summer with the Alaska Journal of Commerce. He's a gem.
But it's true, there are not a lot of people who are attracted to the fish beat because it is so complicated.
No, and we lost Bob Tkach
Oh,
this
my
year.
gosh.
He died. He had his little newspaper that he put out when he covered the legislature.
That was
that
a
was
loss.
huge.
Yeah, but there are some up-and-comers, which is really encouraging. As I mentioned, DJ Summer, Molly Dishner, Stephanie on the radio side. So it's nice to see that the beat isn't so complicated and so adversarial that it's turning everyone away. But it is very specialized. It's a real niche.
Well, we'll get an appreciation of that. As always, we continue our conversation on the web, and we'll have extended interviews, web extras. You can go to our Frontiers section of our website. Well, up next, Andrew Jensen, editor of the Alaska Journal of Commerce, joins us in the conversation. We'll cast a wide net and look at a variety of fishing issues.
Let's never forget the cost of freedom or take it for granted. As a veteran, you are entitled to certain benefits when you pass. To learn what benefits are included, ask for our free Veterans Information Kit and learn how a smart plan can provide all of the things that are not covered. We all enjoy the freedom you provide for us, and we thank you for your service. This is Dominic Hasar, owner and operator of the Cremation Society of Alaska. Call us at 277-2777 or visit our website.
We have a story of 27 families that put 18 months of their lives into building a village, a home for themselves and their future. Our Inupiat culture goes back thousands of years, carried by a strong sense of community. Our relationship with our natural surroundings is at the heart of our culture. By investing in future generations through development that is balanced with the love of our land, the Gupi Corporation brings together traditions of the past with visions of the future.
We're ConocoPhillips. We trace our heritage to Alaska's greatest oil discoveries.
And we're still pioneering.
Developing the first fields in the National Petroleum Reserve Alaska. Expanding existing fields.
And using state-of-the-art technology to produce viscous oil.
Investing billions. Creating hundreds of construction jobs. And producing thousands of barrels of new oil. ConocoPhillips, Alaska's oil and gas company.
I've lived in Alaska since I was 9. I've spent 2/3 of my life in Alaska, and I want to spend the rest of my life in Alaska. There's so much going on in Anchorage, there's so much going on in Alaska that you want to make sure that the news that you're watching is giving you the most accurate picture of what's happening in your community. What's important to KTVA is what's important to Alaska. I really appreciate that when something is going on in the community, KTVA is always there.
The seafood industry, it is Alaska's #1 employer, but does it get the respect it deserves? Well, joining us to talk about that, Laine Welch and also Andrew Jensen with the Alaska Journal of Commerce. You know, one of the things that we always talk about, you know, with excitement are some of the new products that come out from Alaska seafood. And I wonder how important that is that we keep adding value to our fish.
Well, it's tremendously important. I mean, it can make the difference between, you know, pennies per pound to dollars. You know, I mean, if you have a headed and gutted frozen fish that's just going out like cordwood, as opposed to a beautifully trimmed fillet or a smoked product or black cod collars or whatever,
Now,
that's the value.
You were a MC at the Symphony of Seafood event this year. What kind of things did you see there that were new and interesting products?
Well, it's fun that it's expanded beyond salmon, for one thing. And again, the pickled willies, black cod collars, that drew raves. Different like pollock burgers.
I think there were salmon potato chips.
Yeah, that's right. Beautiful.
How were those?
They were good. They were good. Bright red salmon potato chips.
Now,
they were really tasty.
Now, the Alaska Journal of Commerce, you know, always tries to kind of promote these mom and pop industries. Could we have more of them?
Oh, certainly. I mean, I think that's what Alaska has, you know, certainly been known for is innovating, and certainly in the value-added products. And you know, what just the simple value adding of icing fish and treating them better gets, you know, is an added value, and that's something that they're finally had come around with in Bristol Bay, and that's made a huge difference in the price that people are getting. But yeah, I mean, you know, when you add value, that goes down to the harvesters as well, and through the whole supply chain, it generates more income for everybody. And that's one thing where Alaskan, certainly like in Dutch Harbor, the cost of power is so onerous that they can't do a lot of value adding in Dutch Harbor because of the cost of energy. And so one way to add more value in Alaska is to bring down the cost of energy in some of these fishing hubs.
And that gives people in the local economy some more income too.
And yet I'm hearing that that in Dutch Harbor, one of the major plants there now is producing collagen from fish skins. So these are more not just for these are for the pharmaceutical industry, not for us to enjoy eating. But there's tremendous potential in chondroitin, you know, other substances that can be used, the famous omega-3s.
Well, let's talk about the Bristol Bay fishery, which is ramping up right now. Andrew, what kind of an outlook do we have there?
It's supposed to be one of the biggest returns that's ever been seen. The commercial harvest is supposed to be something like 40 million fish. I think last year.
Are they ready for it, you think?
That's the big challenge. You know,
especially with the budget situation.
Right. I mean, if they, you know, government doesn't shut down, there shouldn't be any problem. And they couldn't, certainly, they have the ability to have people work without pay. Much like in the federal shutdown, there were certain people who were deemed essential who worked without pay, and then, you know, once the budget situation was figured out, they were back paid for their work. So I don't think there's any chance that the fish and game managers are not going to do what needs to be done to manage that fishery. But certainly the processors are going to be challenged to manage deliveries, and then that again goes back to the qualities, making sure that the fish are in good condition if there's a big wait for deliveries at Bristol Bay.
We'll talk a little bit more about the government and the budget issues a bit, but what about prices? What kind of prices can we expect, you know, when you have such a huge forecast?
Well, Laine, I know that you pay a lot of attention to that, and there's sort of some different, you know, levers that are going to affect it, because worldwide there's a large supply. So that will create downward price pressure, as it always does. And also the dollar is fairly strong right now versus the Japanese yen, and that's sort of the key currency indicator for Alaska, because so much
and the euro.
Alaska's seafood, yes, exactly, goes to Japan. So that makes American exports more expensive for them. But at the same time, you have a downward price pressure from the supply, so who knows how that's all going to shake out.
Right, so there's still a lot of fish in the freezers from last year's huge run.
Right, the Bristol Bay was larger than expected last year.
So many factors.
And there's price talk, but I hesitate to, on the air, throw out the prices I'm hearing. But they're certainly significantly lower than last year. But as Andrew said, if the boats have RSW refrigerated seawater, they're going to get a 15-cent increase in their price. Half the boats in Bristol Bay, though, are still dry.
So that's kind of one of those future goals that they have to keep working towards. Well, let's talk a little bit about, you know, our budget situation. and they've said that if we do have, you know, we don't reach a budget agreement, that some of the more marginal fisheries may not get the staffing, like where they check for the numbers of fish that escape.
Exactly.
Things like that.
If you're pulling in the field workers, the enumerators, you know, at the weirs and the other counting stations, if they can't be confident about how many fish are coming up the rivers, and you know, for escapement, then
that jeopardizes the future.
Then they can't. In all likelihood, open a fishery in some of these, what they call, you know, the less significant fisheries, meaning Bristol Bay is one of the biggies, of course, and the pinks in Southeast will get a lot of priority.
What does that say when they start marginalizing other fisheries? What does that say about the attitude towards the industry?
It says that they don't recognize the importance of it. And let me point out, of course, with salmon, as Jeff Regnart, the head of the commercial fisheries division at Fish and Game, said, you have to, salmon comes and it's gone. If we can't prosecute our salmon fisheries, they're gone till next year. Right. But at the same time, there are so many other fisheries going on in Alaska. Southeast Alaska's biggest crab fishery, Dungeness, starts June 15th. There are shrimp fisheries and cod fisheries that are, state managed.
There's Norton Sound red crab.
Norton Sound red king crab are, for like 24, 25 people, we'll go out in skiffs and we'll have our first crab fishery of the year.
So a lot of uncertainty now.
Those are all state managed fisheries. So already people in Southeast are saying, am I going to be able to make my payment on my Dungey permit? And so all of those fisheries, according to Jeff Regnart, depending on what happens with the budget, will be put on hold.
Now, one of the things, another issue I just want to switch to is this summer we're going to be asked to sign a petition that would ban set nets so that they could get that on the ballot in certain areas of the state. And ironically, those parameters look suspiciously like the Kenai Peninsula. Do you think that they'll have trouble getting those signatures, or will they be able to?
Well, I think they will be able to get the signatures. It's not a very high threshold to clear to get enough signatures. I think you have to be 30 out of 40 districts with 7% of the people who voted in the last election. So I don't think they should have trouble getting the signatures. The key issue for this summer, though, is what is the Alaska Supreme Court going to do? Because, Meade Treadwell originally rejected this initiative from being on the ballot.
Lieutenant Governor.
Yes, exactly. He rejected it from the ballot, saying that it was a ballot, it was an appropriation of resources by ballot measure, which is prohibited under the Constitution. Then a Superior Court judge overturned Meade's decision, so that allowed them to go out and begin gathering signatures. But the state of Alaska has appealed that ruling to the state Supreme Court, and now I believe it's been fully briefed, and now the Supreme Court has to consider that. So they will have a ruling sometime this summer, maybe this fall, where they'll say yes or no whether this can be on the ballot. If they say no, it's not going to be on the ballot. There won't be any more signature gathering. If they say yes, the signature gathering will continue, and they are shooting, I believe, to get it on the August 2016 primary ballot.
I agree with Andrew that they'll get the signatures because the way in which they're gathering them is so disingenuous. For example, in Kodiak, there will be some young, wet behind the ears person out there with a petition on a clipboard saying, would you sign this petition to protect Alaska salmon? And so people, most people, their knee-jerk response is, oh, absolutely, let me sign.
So is there anything troubling about this kind of an issue, banning a particular gear group by petition, by ballot box?
It would set a terrible precedent. And I know they like to go back to the analogy of fish traps. At statehood, and that was a big thing for, that drove statehood was to eliminate that. This is a very narrow, it's targeted at one group of people in one place. I mean, they want to make it look like it's a statewide initiative, but in reality, it's one place, it's Kenai. There's not urban set netting going on in the other areas that are covered. It is specifically targeted at the Kenai Peninsula set netters.
And that would be, let me interject, that would be, they're saying that it would include shutdowns of set netting in Juneau, Ketchikan, Valdez,
right, and I think
Anchorage, and then the Kenai.
Right, where there is no commercial set netting going on, but they have to make it a statewide issue in order to get it on the ballot because you can't do local legislation through a ballot initiative
either.
All right.
Well, we've run out of time, but I want to thank you, Laine Welch, Alaska Fish Radio, and Andrew Jensen with the Alaska Journal of Commerce. And we'll be continuing this conversation on our website, ktva.com. Check out the Frontiers section. Well, up next, a preview of next week's Frontiers when we take you to Nome to see a grassroots sobriety movement in action.
For more than 60 years, Spenard Builder Supply has helped Alaskans build their backyard barbecues, their curb appeal, their arsenal, and their hideaways. From helping you pick the perfect decking, to mixing paint that's just the right shade, to finding the power tool that pulls it all together, SPS is here to build with you. From ground to roof to everything in between.
Now offering financing with no payments or interest for 12 months. Visit us today at your local Spenard Builder Supply.
The Alaska Native Tribal Health Consortium provides comprehensive health services for Alaska Native and American Indian people across our state. In addition to world-class care at the Alaska Native Medical Center, our work delivers health services for rural Alaska. From cutting-edge technology for the best care possible, to modern construction of clean water systems and health clinics, to health training and outreach that honors our culture, our vision is that Alaska Native people are the healthiest people in the world.
The core of everybody's membership in Rotary is the opportunity to have a feeling of significance in their communities.
I think if everybody belonged to Rotary, there would be no wars in this world.
It doesn't take a lot to be a Rotarian.
One person can make a tremendous difference in the lives of another.
With the new KTVA 11 News live stream, you can stay up to date on Alaska news, sports, and weather every day from anywhere.
In Homer.
In Tanana.
From the capital.
At Denali Base Camp.
From McGrath.
Here at the Port of Anchorage. In Kodiak. Here on Prince of Wales Island. From Barrow. In North Pole.
And we mean anywhere.
In Portland. From Boise.
From Denver. In Washington, D.C.
From Reykjavik, Iceland.
From Afghanistan.
At 35,000 feet above South Dakota.
Try it today at ktva.com/stream.
Next week on Frontiers, we'll take you to Nome for the Rural Providers Conference. The message at this annual gathering is that keeping your culture is the key to wellness and sobriety. And it's also a chance to hear from some who thought that recovery from alcoholism was an impossible dream.
I'll do anything, I'll cheat, I'll do anything to get a can of beer. And I said to myself, if I keep on drinking, I'm going to disappear. I'm going to be gone. January 15, 1992, my last drop of Budweiser.
The Rural Providers Conference is in its 32nd year, and next week, a look at how this grassroots Native sobriety movement has made a huge difference in lives. And beyond this program, we have web extras, photo galleries, and I also blog each week about each show where I share some behind-the-scenes information. So if you want to keep up with me, follow me on Twitter, The Faces and Places of Alaska in 140 characters. Well, now it's time to wrap up our weekly conversation. Thank you for joining us. And from all of us here at KTVA, may you find your own frontier.